Honey, we just can't afford it this year. Money's too tight for Thanksgiving. We simply can't pay for it this year, darling. We're on a very tight budget for Thanksgiving. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, heavy with what sounded like genuine disappointment. I heard my mother's voice on the phone. It was shaky and filled with what appeared to be true sadness. I sat in my Denver apartment, staring out at the early November snow, feeling my heart sink. Sitting in my apartment in Denver, watching the early November snow fall, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. My name is Brianna Fields and I'm 30 years old. For the past 8 years I've worked as a senior project manager at Gravora Group, a mid-sized construction company here in Colorado. I make decent money, around $75,000 a year. And I've always been the responsible one in my family, the one who saves money, pays bills on time and plans ahead. My parents, Robert and Janet Fields, live back in Phoenix with my younger sister Vanessa, who's 26 and works as a social media coordinator for some startup. I'm Brianna Fields, 30 years old. For the last 8 years I've been a senior project manager at Gravora Group, a medium-sized construction company in Colorado, earning about $75,000 annually. I've always been the reliable one in the family, the one who manages finances carefully, pays bills promptly, and thinks ahead. My parents, Robert and Janet Fields, live in Phoenix with my 26-year-old sister Vanessa, a social media coordinator for a startup. Mom, you know I could help out. I offered immediately. I've been saving up anyway. I could fly down and cover the groceries. Maybe even rent a nice place if Dad's house isn't big enough for everyone. Mom, I could contribute. I offered right away. I've been setting aside money regardless. I can fly down and pay for the food. I could even rent a bigger place if Dad's house won't fit everyone. There was a pause that felt too long. Oh, sweetheart, that's so generous. But we've already told everyone to make other plans. Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria are doing something small with just their kids. Your cousins Tyler and Madison already booked that cabin they go to every year. It's better this way, less stress for everybody. A lengthy silence followed. That's so kind of you, honey, she said. But we've already told everyone to do something else. Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria are having a small gathering with their children. Your cousins, Tyler and Madison, have already reserved their usual cabin for the year. It's simpler this way, and less stressful for everyone. Something about her tone felt off, but I pushed the feeling aside. Her tone of voice seemed strange to me, but I chose to ignore my intuition. My family had been through some rough patches financially over the years. Dad had been laid off from his warehouse job 6 months ago, and Mom's part-time work at the local pharmacy wasn't bringing in much. It made sense that they'd want to keep things simple. Financially, my family had faced difficulties in the past. Dad had lost his warehouse job 6 months ago, and Mom's part-time pharmacy work wasn't generating much income. It was understandable they wanted to keep things uncomplicated. Are you sure? Pressed. Because honestly, Mom, I've been looking forward to seeing everyone. It's been since last Christmas. Are you certain? I persisted. I was really hoping to see everyone, Mom. I haven't seen them since last Christmas. I know, baby. No. But maybe we can plan something for New Year's instead when things settle down a bit. I know, honey. I know, she said. Perhaps we can arrange something for New Year's when things are less hectic. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment feeling hollow. I felt empty sitting alone in my silent apartment after ending the call. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. The warmth of family gathered around the table. The laughter echoing through the house. The sense of belonging that came with being surrounded by people who knew you inside and out. Now I was facing the prospect of spending it alone, eating a frozen dinner and watching football by myself. Thanksgiving was my most cherished holiday. I loved the feeling of warmth, the sound of laughter filling the house, and the sense of belonging that came from being with people who knew me so well. Now it looked like I would be spending it alone, eating a microwaved meal and watching football. I called my sister Vanessa next, hoping maybe she'd want to do something together. Just the two of us. I then called my sister Vanessa, hoping she might want to spend the day with just me. "Oh my God, Bree, I'm so bummed about Thanksgiving," she said, her voice carrying that same theatrical disappointment I'd heard from Mom. "Oh my gosh, Bree, I'm so disappointed about Thanksgiving," she said, her voice filled with the same dramatic sadness I'd heard from Mom. "But honestly, I'm kind of relieved too. I've been so swamped with work lately, and Trevor's been wanting to take me somewhere nice for the weekend." Trevor was her boyfriend of 2 years, some guy who worked in tech and always seemed to have money for expensive trips and fancy restaurants. But to be honest, I'm also a little relieved. Work has been so busy lately, and Trevor wants to take me somewhere special for the weekend. Her boyfriend of 2 years, Trevor, worked in tech and always had money for lavish trips and fine dining. "Maybe we could do something simple," I suggested. "Just grab dinner somewhere. Nothing fancy. Perhaps we could do something low-key," I proposed. "Just go out for dinner, nothing elaborate." "I wish I could, but we already made plans." Rain check. "I wish I could, but we already have plans. Let's reschedule." There was something about the way she said it. Too quick, too eager to get off the phone, that left me feeling even more isolated than before. Growing up, our family had always been close. Or at least I thought we were. The way she said it, so quickly and so eager to hang up, made me feel even more alone. I had always believed our family was close. My parents weren't wealthy, but they made sure we felt loved and included. My parents weren't rich, but they always ensured we felt loved and part of the family. Dad worked long hours at the warehouse, and Mom juggled part-time jobs to make ends meet. But somehow they always managed to pull together enough for holidays and birthdays. Dad worked long shifts at the warehouse, and Mom had multiple part-time jobs to support us, but they always found a way to celebrate holidays and birthdays. Vanessa and I shared a room until I left for college, and despite our 5-year age gap, we got along well most of the time. We shared a room until I went to college, and, despite our 5-year age difference, we usually got along well. But looking back now, I could see the patterns I'd been blind to for years. I was always the one who remembered birthdays first, who called to check in, who offered to help when someone needed it. Now, looking back, I could see things I hadn't noticed before. I was always the first to remember birthdays, to check in on everyone, and to offer help when it was needed. When Dad got laid off from his previous job 3 years ago, I'd sent home $500 without being asked. When Vanessa's car broke down last year, I'd helped her with the down payment for a new one. When Mom needed dental work that insurance wouldn't cover, I'd quietly transferred money to her account. When Dad was laid off from his old job 3 years ago, I sent them $500 without being asked. When Vanessa's car broke down last year, I helped her pay for a new one. When Mom needed dental work not covered by insurance, I discreetly sent her money. I told myself it was what family did for each other. I was single, had a stable job, and didn't have kids or a mortgage weighing me down. I justified my actions by telling myself that's what family does. I was single, had a secure job, and wasn't burdened by kids or a mortgage. It felt natural to be the one who could step up when others couldn't. I naturally felt like it was my responsibility to help out when others couldn't. But there were little things that had started to bother me over the years. The way conversation would shift whenever I brought up my job or mentioned getting a promotion. How Vanessa would post photos of expensive dinners and weekend trips on social media, but still ask me to cover her phone bill because she was between paychecks. Over the years, small things had begun to bother me. For example, how conversations would change whenever I mentioned my job or a promotion, and how Vanessa would post pictures of expensive meals and weekend getaways online, but still ask me to pay her phone bill between her paychecks. The way my parents would praise her for landing a new client at work, but barely acknowledged when I got recognized at my company or took on additional responsibilities. My parents would praise her for getting a new client, but would hardly notice when I was acknowledged at my company or took on more duties. I'd always assumed it was because my life seemed more stable, more predictable. Vanessa was the creative one, the one with the exciting job and the Instagram-worthy lifestyle. I was just reliable old Brianna, doing my boring construction job and living my quiet life in Colorado. I had always thought it was because my life was more stable and predictable. Vanessa was the creative one with the exciting job and a glamorous life, while I was just dependable old Brianna with her boring construction job and quiet life in Colorado. Still, the phone call from Mom had caught me off guard. In all the years of family financial struggles, they'd never completely canned a holiday before. There had been smaller gatherings, potluck-style meals, and creative gift exchanges, but never just nothing. Nevertheless, Mom's phone call was a surprise. In all the years of my family's financial troubles, they had never completely cancelled a holiday. There had been smaller get-togethers, potlucks, and creative gift exchanges, but never nothing at all. That afternoon, I found myself scrolling through old family photos on my phone. I spent that afternoon looking through old family pictures on my phone. Pictures from last Thanksgiving where we'd all crowded around Dad's table, arguing over football games and competing for the last piece of pie. Mom had made her famous stuffing, and Uncle Pete had told the same corny jokes he'd been telling for 20 years. Vanessa had been on her phone half the time, but she'd still been there, still been part of it. I saw photos from last Thanksgiving, where we were all squeezed around Dad's table, bickering about football and trying to get the last slice of pie. Mom had made her famous stuffing, and Uncle Pete had told his same old jokes. Vanessa was on her phone for most of it, but she was still there, still a part of the family. The silence in my apartment felt heavier as evening approached. I'd gotten so used to having somewhere to go, someone to see, that I hadn't realized how empty my social life had become outside of family. Most of my college friends had moved away or gotten married and started families of their own. My work colleagues were friendly enough, but we didn't really socialize outside the office. For the first time in years, I was truly going to be alone on Thanksgiving. As the evening drew closer, the silence in my apartment became more oppressive. I was so accustomed to having a place to go and people to see that I hadn't noticed how empty my social life had become outside of my family. Most of my college friends had moved away or were married with their own families. My co-workers were friendly, but we didn't socialize outside of work. For the first time in years, I was going to be completely alone on Thanksgiving. Thursday arrived gray and cold. I'd made a half-hearted attempt to create some holiday spirit for myself. I bought a small turkey breast from the grocery store and picked up ingredients for basic sides. But as I stood in my kitchen that morning looking at the sad little meal I was preparing for one, the whole thing felt pathetic. Thursday was a dreary, chilly day. I made a half-hearted effort to feel festive by buying a small turkey breast and ingredients for basic side dishes from the grocery store. But as I stood in my kitchen, looking at the small meal I was making for myself, I felt a wave of sadness. I tried calling a few friends from college, but everyone was busy with their own family celebrations. I called some college friends, but they were all busy with their families. My coworker Jessica had invited me to join her family's dinner, but something about being the charity case at someone else's table made me decline. I told myself I preferred to be alone anyway. My coworker Jessica had invited me to her family's dinner, but the thought of being a pity guest at someone else's table made me turn her down. I told myself I would rather be alone. The day dragged on endlessly. I cooked my small meal, watched the parade on television, and tried to lose myself in a book. But every few minutes, my mind would drift back to wondering what my family was doing. Were they really just staying home, having a quiet day? Were Mom and Dad watching football while Vanessa caught up on work? The day felt endless. I cooked my small meal, watched the parade on TV, and tried to read, but my mind kept wandering, wondering what my family was doing. Were they truly at home, having a quiet day? Were Mom and Dad watching football while Vanessa worked? Around 6 p.m., I was picking up my leftover turkey and scrolling mindlessly through social media when something stopped me cold. Vanessa had just started a live video on Instagram, and the preview image showed her laughing, a cocktail in her hand, palm trees visible in the background. At about 6 p.m., I was eating my leftover turkey and scrolling through social media when I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Vanessa had just started an Instagram live video, and the preview showed her laughing with a drink in her hand and palm trees in the background. My heart started pounding as I tapped to join the live stream. There was my sister, radiant in a flowing sundress, standing on what looked like an elegant rooftop terrace overlooking the ocean. My heart pounded as I tapped on the live stream. My sister was there, looking radiant in a flowing sundress on what appeared to be an elegant rooftop terrace with an ocean view. Behind her, I could see other people mingling. People who looked distinctly familiar. I could see other people socializing behind her. People I recognized. "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone," Vanessa was saying to her followers, her voice bright and cheerful. "I'm so grateful to be here in beautiful Miami with my amazing family." "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone," Vanessa said to her followers in a bright, happy voice. "I'm so thankful to be here in beautiful Miami with my wonderful family." She turned the camera and my world tilted. There was my Uncle Pete raising a glass of wine toward the phone. There was Aunt Gloria laughing at something someone had said off camera. My cousins Tyler and Madison were lounging by what appeared to be an infinity pool, drinks in hand. And then the camera panned further and I saw them. My parents. She turned the camera and my world shifted. There was my Uncle Pete toasting the camera with a glass of wine. My Aunt Gloria was laughing at something someone said off camera. My cousins, Tyler and Madison, were relaxing by what looked like an infinity pool, holding drinks. And then the camera moved further and I saw them, my parents. My mother wearing a flowing white blouse I'd never seen before, chatting animatedly with someone I didn't recognize. My father relaxed in expensive-looking resort wear, a beer in his hand, and the biggest smile I'd seen on his face in months. My mother was wearing a flowing white blouse I'd never seen before, talking excitedly to someone I didn't recognize. My father was relaxed in expensive resort wear, holding a beer, with the biggest smile I had seen on his face in months. "We're having such an incredible time at this private resort," Vanessa continued, turning the camera back to herself. "The food has been absolutely amazing and the weather is perfect. I feel so lucky to have a family that knows how to celebrate in style. We're having a wonderful time at this private resort," Vanessa continued, turning the camera back to her face. "The food is incredible and the weather is perfect. I feel so lucky to have a family that celebrates in such a fancy way." I watched in stunned silence as she showed off the elaborate buffet spread. The professional bartender making custom cocktails, the live band playing in the background. This wasn't some simple family gathering. This was an expensive coordinated vacation that would have cost thousands of dollars. I watched in shocked silence as she showed off the elaborate buffet, the professional bartender making drinks, and the live band playing. This wasn't a simple family gathering. It was an expensive, well-planned vacation that must have cost thousands of dollars. My phone felt heavy in my hands as the pieces fell into place. They hadn't canceled Thanksgiving because they were broke. They'd canceled it because they didn't want me there. While I'd been sitting alone in my apartment, eating reheated turkey and feeling sorry for myself, my entire family had been living it up at some luxury resort in Miami. My phone felt heavy in my hands as the truth sank in. They didn't cancel Thanksgiving because they were broke. They canceled it because they didn't want me there. While I was in my apartment, eating reheated turkey and feeling sorry for myself, my whole family was having a blast at a luxury resort in Miami. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath and making my chest tight with hurt and anger. I stared at my phone screen until the live stream ended, my mind reeling with disbelief. The betrayal hit me hard, leaving me breathless and my chest tight with hurt and rage. I stared at my phone screen until the live stream ended, my mind spinning in disbelief. The cheerful sounds of Vanessa's voice and the laughter of my family echoed in my ears, but now they felt like cruel mockery. Vanessa's happy voice and my family's laughter echoed in my ears, but now they felt like a cruel joke. I set the phone down with shaking hands and tried to process what I just witnessed. My hands were shaking as I put the phone down, trying to understand what I had just seen. They had lied to me. Not just a small white lie or an omission. They had deliberately, carefully constructed an elaborate deception to exclude me from what was clearly a planned family vacation. They had deceived me. It wasn't a small lie or a simple mistake. They had deliberately created a complex lie to keep me out of what was clearly a planned family trip. The "we're too broke for Thanksgiving" story had been complete fiction designed to keep me away while they celebrated without me. The story about being too broke for Thanksgiving was a complete fabrication, meant to keep me away while they celebrated without me. But why? That was the question that tormented me as I sat in my suddenly suffocating apartment. What had I done to deserve this? But why? That question plagued me as I sat in my suddenly suffocating apartment. What did I do to deserve this? I'd always been there for them, always ready to help financially or emotionally whenever they needed it. I'd never been demanding or needy. I'd never caused family drama or created problems. I was always there for them, ready to help with money or emotional support. I was never demanding or high maintenance. I never caused family problems or drama. I replayed every conversation from the past few weeks, looking for clues I might have missed. Mom's tone had seemed genuine when she called, but now I could hear the practiced quality in her voice. The way she'd rushed to shut down my offers to help. Vanessa's quick dismissal of my suggestion to spend the holiday together suddenly made perfect sense. She'd already known about Miami. I went over every conversation from the last few weeks, looking for signs I might have missed. Mom's tone had seemed sincere, but now I could hear how rehearsed it was. The way she had quickly rejected my offers to help, and Vanessa's quick dismissal of my idea to spend the holiday together, suddenly made perfect sense. She already knew about Miami. The worst part was imagining them planning this trip. They would have had to coordinate flights, book accommodations, arrange time off work. This wasn't a last-minute decision. It was something they'd been organizing for weeks, maybe months. The worst part was picturing them planning this trip. They must have arranged flights, booked rooms, and taken time off work. This wasn't a last-minute trip. It had been planned for weeks, possibly months. And through all of that planning, through all those family group chats and phone calls I clearly hadn't been included in, not one of them had considered inviting me. And through all the planning, all the family group chats and phone calls that I was clearly not a part of, not one of them even thought about inviting me. I felt like I was seeing my family clearly for the first time. And the picture was uglier than I'd ever imagined. For the first time I felt like I was seeing my family for who they really were. And it was a more painful reality than I had ever imagined. All those years of feeling like the responsible older sister, the one who could be counted on, the one who held things together. Maybe what I really was to them was the convenient bank account. The boring relative they tolerated because I was useful when they needed money, but who could be easily discarded when they wanted to have fun. All those years I thought I was the responsible older sister, the one they could rely on, the one who kept things together. Maybe all I was to them was a convenient source of money. The boring relative they put up with when they needed help but could easily cast aside when they wanted to have a good time. My phone buzzed with notifications as Vanessa's followers liked and commented on her posts from the trip. Could see the photos now. Professional quality shots of the resort. Group pictures of everyone looking happy and relaxed. Artistic food photos of elaborate meals. My phone vibrated with notifications as Vanessa's followers liked and commented on her trip photos. Now I could see the pictures. Professional-looking shots of the resort, group photos of everyone looking happy and relaxed, and artistic photos of fancy meals. The kind of vacation that cost serious money, not the tight budget my mother had described. This was the kind of vacation that costs a lot of money, not the tight budget my mother had mentioned. I thought about calling them, confronting them directly about the lie. But what would be the point? I thought about calling them to confront them about their lie. But what good would that do? They'd clearly made their choice about whether I belonged in their lives, and forcing an awkward conversation wouldn't change that fundamental rejection. They had already made it clear that I wasn't part of their lives, and having a difficult conversation wouldn't change that deep rejection. Instead, I found myself scrolling through my banking app, looking at all the transfers I'd made to family members over the years. $500 here for Dad's job loss, $300 there for Mom's medical bills, $600 for Vanessa's car down payment, $400 for Uncle Pete's kids' school expenses, $200 for Aunt Gloria's emergency house repair. Instead, I scrolled through my banking app, looking at all the money I had sent to my family over the years. $500 when Dad lost his job, $300 for Mom's medical bills, $600 for Vanessa's car down payment, $400 for Uncle Pete's kids' school expenses, and $200 for Aunt Gloria's emergency house repair. The amounts added up to thousands of dollars. Money I'd given freely, happily even, because I thought we were a family that supported each other. The total came to thousands of dollars. Money I had given willingly and happily, because I thought we were a family that supported each other. Now I wondered if they'd been laughing about my generosity behind my back. Poor Brianna, always willing to bail everyone out. Good old reliable Brianna, who never questioned where the money goes or what it's really for. Stupid Brianna, who actually believes all those sob stories about tight budgets and unexpected expenses. Now I wondered if they had been secretly laughing at my generosity. Poor Brianna, always helping everyone out, they might have said. Reliable old Brianna, who never asks where the money goes or what it's for. Stupid Brianna, who actually believes all those sad stories about being broke and having unexpected costs. The humiliation burned in my throat. I'd been played for years and I'd been too naive and trusting to see it. They'd taken advantage of my love for them, my desire to be a good daughter and sister, and they'd used it to fund their lifestyle while keeping me on the outside looking in. The shame was a bitter taste in my mouth. I had been deceived for years, too naive and trusting to realize it. They had exploited my love and my desire to be a good daughter and sister, using it to pay for their lifestyle while excluding me. I closed the banking app and set my phone aside. The anger was building now, pushing through the hurt and disappointment. I closed my banking app and put my phone down. Anger was now replacing my hurt and disappointment. They'd made their choice about what I meant to them. Now it was time for me to make mine about what they meant to me. They had decided what I meant to them. Now it was my turn to decide what they meant to me. The next week passed in a blur of work meetings and sleepless nights. I couldn't concentrate on my projects at Gravora Group, kept making small mistakes that I had to correct, and found myself snapping at colleagues who didn't deserve it. The following week was a haze of work meetings and sleepless nights. I couldn't focus on my projects at Gravora Group, made minor errors I had to fix, and found myself being irritable with my coworkers. The knowledge of my family's betrayal sat like a weight in my chest, making everything else feel trivial and meaningless. The betrayal from my family felt like a heavy weight in my chest, making everything else seem unimportant and pointless. I avoided social media entirely, not wanting to see any more photos or updates from their Miami trip. But I couldn't avoid the group chat notifications that kept popping up on my phone. Casual messages about flight delays and restaurant recommendations that made it clear the family vacation was ongoing. None of the messages were directed at me, of course. I was apparently still persona non grata in whatever new family dynamic they'd established. I stayed away from social media so I wouldn't see any more pictures or updates from their Miami trip. But I couldn't avoid the group chat notifications that kept appearing on my phone. The casual messages about flight delays and restaurant suggestions made it clear that their vacation was still happening. Of course, none of the messages were for me. It was clear I was still unwanted in this new family dynamic they had created. Friday afternoon, I was in a meeting with my boss, Tom Rodriguez, discussing timeline adjustments for a commercial renovation project when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my father's name, and for a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. "I need to take this," I told Tom, stepping out into the hallway. On Friday afternoon, during a meeting with my boss, Tom Rodriguez, to discuss a commercial renovation project's timeline, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my dad's name. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but my curiosity got the better of me. "I need to take this," I told Tom, stepping into the hall. "Hey, Dad," I answered, my voice carefully neutral. "Brianna, how are you, sweetheart? How was your Thanksgiving?" "Hey, Dad," I answered, my voice emotionless. "Brianna, how are you, honey? How was your Thanksgiving?" The casual tone of his voice, as if nothing had happened, almost made me laugh. It was quiet. "How was yours?" His casual tone, as if nothing was wrong, almost made me laugh. "It was quiet," I said. How was yours? Oh, pretty low-key. Just watched some football and relaxed. The lie came so easily to him that I wondered how many other times he deceived me without me realizing it. Oh, pretty low-key. Just watched some football and relaxed. He lied so effortlessly that I wondered how many other times he had fooled me without my knowing. That sounds nice. Listen, honey. I'm calling because I could use a favor. We've got this opportunity for a family cruise coming up in January. One of those last-minute deals where you can get a really good price if you book fast, but we need to put down a deposit by Monday. And I'm a little short on cash right now. That sounds nice. Listen, honey, I'm calling to ask for a favor. We found a great last-minute deal on a family cruise for January. We can get a really good price if we book quickly, but we need a deposit by Monday, and I'm a little short on funds right now. There it was. Not even a week after excluding me from their luxury Thanksgiving vacation. He was asking me for money to fund their next trip. The audacity was breathtaking. There it was. Less than a week after they left me out of their fancy Thanksgiving trip. He was asking me for money for their next one. The nerve was unbelievable. How much? Asked, keeping my voice steady. $2,100. How much? Asked, keeping my voice calm. $2,100. I know it's a lot, but it's for the whole family, and the price they're offering is incredible. We'd save over $3,000 compared to booking it normally. I know it's a lot, but it's for the whole family, and the price is amazing. We'd save more than $3,000 off the normal price. The whole family, I repeated. Well, me and your mom Vanessa and Trevor, Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria, the kids. It'll be like a reunion at sea. Me. There was a pause that lasted just a beat too long. Well, of course you're invited to, sweetheart. I just figured you might not be able to get the time off work on such short notice. The whole family? Asked again. Well, your mom and me, Vanessa and Trevor, Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria, and the kids. It'll be a reunion at sea. And me. There was a slightly too long pause. Well, of course you're invited, honey. I just thought you might not be able to get time off work on such short notice. Right, I said. So, you need $2,100 by Monday if possible. I know it's asking a lot, but you've always been so good about helping family when we need it. I see, I said. So you need $2,100 by Monday. I know it's a lot to ask, but you've always been so great about helping us out when we're in need. The words hung in the air between us. I could picture him sitting in his living room in Phoenix, probably still tan from his Miami vacation, expecting me to eagerly agree to fund yet another family trip that I'd be conveniently excluded from. Let me think about it, I said finally. His words lingered. I could picture him in his Phoenix living room, probably still tan from his Miami vacation, expecting me to quickly agree to pay for another family trip that I would likely be left out of. Let me think about it, I said. Of course. Take your time. Well, not too much time. The deadline is Monday, but I know you'll do the right thing. Of course. Take your time. But don't take too long. The deadline is Monday, but I know you'll do the right thing. After we hung up, I stood in the hallway for a long moment, watching my colleagues move past me, going about their normal Friday afternoon routines. After we hung up, I stood in the hallway for a while, watching my coworkers go about their normal Friday afternoon. They had no idea that my entire understanding of my place in the world had just shifted. The right thing. He wanted me to do the right thing. The question was, right for whom? They had no idea that my entire perception of my place in the world had just changed. He wanted me to do the right thing. But I had to wonder, right for whom? That weekend I made a decision that would change everything. I'd been thinking about my career lately, feeling restless and undervalued at Gravora Group, despite my years of loyal service. That weekend I made a life-changing decision. I had been feeling restless and unappreciated at Gravora Group, even after years of dedicated work, and I had been thinking about my career. The company was solid but uninspiring, and I'd been considering making a move for months. The family situation had crystallized something for me. I was tired of being taken for granted, whether by my relatives or my employer. The company was stable but not exciting, and I had been thinking of leaving for months. The family situation had made something very clear to me. I was tired of being taken for granted by both my family and my employer. Saturday morning, I drove to a coffee shop I'd never been to before in a part of Denver I rarely visited and spent 3 hours researching something I'd only dreamed about: starting my own construction consulting firm. On Saturday morning, I went to an unfamiliar coffee shop in a part of Denver I rarely visited and spent 3 hours researching something I had only dreamed of doing: starting my own construction consulting firm. I'd been in the industry long enough to understand the gaps in the market, and I had enough connections to make it work. More importantly, I had savings, money I'd been careful with over the years instead of spending it on luxury vacations and designer clothes. I had enough experience in the industry to see where the market needed more services, and I had enough contacts to make it happen. More importantly, I had savings, money I had been careful with for years instead of spending it on lavish trips and expensive clothing. By Sunday evening, I drafted a business plan, researched the legal requirements, and started reaching out to former colleagues who'd moved on to other companies. The response was immediately encouraging. 3 people I'd worked with in the past were interested in joining me as freelance consultants, and 2 potential clients had already expressed interest in our services. By Sunday night, I had a business plan, researched the legal requirements, and started contacting former co-workers who had left the company. The reaction was immediately positive. 3 former colleagues wanted to join me as freelance consultants, and 2 potential clients had already shown interest in our services. Monday morning, I called my father back. "Dad, about that cruise deposit you needed." "Oh, Brianna, I was hoping you'd call. Did you decide you can help us out?" On Monday morning, I called my father back. "Dad, about that cruise deposit." "Oh, Brianna, I was hoping you'd call. Did you decide you could help us?" "Actually, I've decided I can't support that." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" "Just a loan. We'll pay you back once we get home and everyone can contribute." "Actually, I've decided I can't support that." A silence followed. "What do you mean?" "Just a loan. We'll pay you back when we get home, and everyone will contribute." "No, Dad. I mean, I can't support frauds." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "No, Dad. I mean, I can't support liars." The silence on the other end of the phone was absolute. "I saw Vanessa's live stream from Miami," I continued, my voice calm and steady. "Your luxury Thanksgiving vacation that you somehow afforded despite being too broke to have a simple family dinner. So no, I won't be funding your cruise." "I saw Vanessa's live stream from Miami," I continued, my voice calm and firm. "Your fancy Thanksgiving vacation that you somehow paid for even though you were too broke for a simple family dinner. So no, I will not be paying for your cruise." "Brianna, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. You lied to me so you could exclude me from your family celebration, and now you want me to pay for your next one. The answer is no." "Brianna, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. You lied to me to keep me from your family celebration, and now you want me to pay for your next one. The answer is no." "Honey, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I also want you to know that I'm blocking your number after this call. Don't contact me again." "You can't be serious." I hung up and immediately blocked his number. Then did the same with my mother's and sister's numbers. Then I blocked them on all social media platforms. In the span of 5 minutes, I'd cut all communication ties with my family. "Honey, you don't understand." "I understand completely. I also want you to know that I'm blocking your number after this call. Don't contact me again." "You can't be serious." I hung up and immediately blocked his number, then did the same with my mother and sister's numbers, and also blocked them on all social media. In 5 minutes, I had cut all ties with my family. The relief was immediate and surprising. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe properly. The sense of relief was instant and unexpected. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could truly breathe again. Tuesday morning, I walked into Tom Rodriguez's office and submitted my resignation. 2 weeks notice, professional and courteous but firm. This is unexpected, he said, looking genuinely surprised. Is there anything we can do to keep you? I'm starting my own firm, I told him. It's time. On Tuesday morning, I went into Tom Rodriguez's office and handed in my resignation. I gave 2 weeks notice. It was professional and polite but firm. This is a surprise, he said, looking genuinely shocked. Is there anything we can do to make you stay? I'm starting my own company, I told him. It's time. Within days, word had spread through the industry. A prominent business magazine, Colorado Construction Weekly, reached out for an interview about the growing trend of experienced professionals leaving established firms to start their own companies. They wanted to feature me in their next issue as an example of entrepreneurial success in the construction industry. I agreed to the interview and the photographer came to my apartment the following week. The article would run in 3 weeks, they told me. Perfect timing. Within a few days, the news had spread. A well-known business magazine, Colorado Construction Weekly, contacted me for an interview about the trend of experienced professionals leaving established firms to start their own businesses. They wanted to feature me as an example of entrepreneurial success in the construction industry. I agreed to the interview, and a photographer came to my apartment the following week. They told me the article would be published in 3 weeks, which was perfect timing. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd hoped. 3 weeks later, the magazine hit newsstands and digital platforms. The article was titled Building Success. Local professionals strike out on their own, and my photo was prominently featured on the cover. The piece detailed my decision to leave Gravora Group, my vision for my consulting firm, and the clients I'd already secured. Everything was working out just as I had hoped. 3 weeks later, the magazine was published online and in print. The article was titled Building Success. Local professionals strike out on their own, and my photo was on the cover. The article talked about my decision to leave Gravora Group, my plans for my new firm, and the clients I had already acquired. More importantly, the article mentioned my educational background, my years of experience, and the innovative approaches I was bringing to construction project management. It painted a picture of someone who was successful, professional, and definitely not someone who needed to beg family members for handouts. I didn't have to wait long for the response. My phone, which had been blissfully quiet since I'd blocked my family's numbers, started ringing constantly. Unknown numbers from Phoenix area codes. I ignored them all, but I could see the voicemails piling up. After the 15th missed call in 2 days, I finally listened to one. The article also mentioned my education, my years of experience, and the new methods I was bringing to construction project management. It portrayed me as a successful, professional person who certainly didn't need to beg her family for money. I didn't have to wait long for them to respond. My phone, which had been wonderfully quiet since I blocked my family's numbers, started ringing non-stop with unknown numbers from Phoenix. I ignored them, but I saw the voicemails piling up. After the 15th missed call in 2 days, I finally listened to one. Brianna, this is your mother. Please call me back. We need to talk about this situation. You're being childish and stubborn, and we're family. Family works things out. Childish and stubborn. That was rich coming from the woman who'd lied to my face about being too poor for Thanksgiving while planning a luxury vacation behind my back. I deleted the voicemail and blocked that number too. Brianna, it's your mother. Please call me back. We need to talk about this. You're being immature and unreasonable. We're family. Families resolve their issues. Childish and stubborn. That was ironic coming from the woman who had lied to me about being too poor for Thanksgiving while secretly planning a luxurious vacation. I deleted the message and blocked that number as well. But they were persistent. New numbers kept calling. Friends of the family reaching out on social media. Even my old high school acquaintances sending messages asking if I was okay because my family was worried about me. The magazine article had done exactly what I'd hoped. It had shown them that I wasn't the sad, lonely woman they'd imagined eating dinner by herself on Thanksgiving. I was a successful professional making power moves in my career, and I didn't need them anymore. But they didn't give up. I kept getting calls from new numbers. Family friends contacted me on social media. Even old high school acquaintances sent messages, saying my family was worried about me. The magazine article had worked exactly as I had intended. It showed them that I wasn't the sad, lonely woman they had imagined eating dinner alone on Thanksgiving. I was a successful professional making strong career moves, and I no longer needed them. 2 days after the magazine article went viral in our local business community, I got a call from my former colleague Jessica at Gravora Group. 2 days after the magazine article became a big topic in the local business community, I got a call from my former co-worker Jessica at Gravora Group. "Girl, your family is calling here asking for your new contact information," she said, her voice amused. I told them we don't give out personal information about former employees, but they were persistent. "Your sister called 3 times yesterday." "Girl, your family is calling here asking for your new number," she said, sounding entertained. I told them we don't give out personal information, but they were very insistent. "Your sister called 3 times yesterday." "Thank you for not giving it to them," I said. "Course not. But I have to ask what's going on." They seemed pretty desperate. I gave Jessica a brief version of the Thanksgiving situation, and her reaction was immediate outrage. "Thank you for not giving it to them," I said. "Of course not. But I have to know what's going on." They seemed so desperate. I gave Jessica a quick summary of the Thanksgiving situation, and she was immediately furious. "Are you kidding me? They excluded you from a family vacation and then asked you to pay for their next one. That's insane. Are you serious? They left you out of a family vacation and then asked you to pay for their next one. That's unbelievable." "It gets better," I told her. "I heard through a mutual friend that their cruise fell through because they couldn't come up with the deposit money." Jessica laughed. "Serves them right. You know, I always thought something was off about them when they'd call asking for you during work hours. They never seemed to respect that you had a professional life." "It gets even better," I told her. "I heard from a friend that the cruise didn't happen because they couldn't come up with the deposit." Jessica laughed. "They deserved it. You know, I always thought there was something strange about them when they called you during work. They never seemed to respect your professional life." That afternoon I got a message from Trevor, Vanessa's boyfriend, on LinkedIn of all places. The message was lengthy and apologetic, explaining that he'd had no idea I hadn't been invited to Miami, that he'd assumed I'd chosen not to come. He said the family had been spinning the story to make it seem like I'd declined their invitation. I didn't respond, but the message confirmed what I'd suspected. They'd been lying to other people about the situation too. Probably to avoid looking like the terrible people they actually were. The web of deception was unraveling, and they were scrambling to contain the damage. But it was too late. That afternoon, Vanessa's boyfriend Trevor messaged me on LinkedIn, of all places. His long, apologetic message explained that he didn't know I hadn't been invited to Miami. He thought I had decided not to go. He said the family had been telling people that I had turned down their invitation. I didn't reply, but his message confirmed my suspicions. They had also been lying to other people about the situation, probably so they wouldn't look like the awful people they were. Their web of lies was falling apart, and they were desperately trying to fix the damage. But it was too late. I was done with all of them, and they were finally starting to understand that I meant it. The aftermath of my decision played out exactly as I'd hoped. Though even I was surprised by how completely their house of cards collapsed. I was finished with them, and they were finally realizing that I was serious. The results of my decision were exactly what I had hoped for. I was even surprised by how completely their lives fell apart. The cruise never happened. Without my financial contribution, they couldn't make the deposit, and none of them could cover the full amount on their own. Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria, who'd apparently planned their winter around the trip, were furious when they learned the real reason it fell through. Word spread quickly through our extended family and family friends about what had happened at Thanksgiving and how they'd tried to manipulate me afterward. The cruise never happened. They couldn't pay the deposit without my money, and none of them could afford to cover the full amount. Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria, who had apparently planned their entire winter around the trip, were furious when they found out the real reason it was cancelled. News of what happened at Thanksgiving and how they tried to manipulate me afterward quickly spread through our extended family and friends. The story took on a life of its own, growing more damaging with each retelling. Invitations to other family events and social gatherings dried up as people realized what kind of people they really were. Dad's reputation in his small social circle in Phoenix was permanently damaged. And Mom found herself explaining awkward encounters at the pharmacy where she worked. The story became its own thing, getting more and more damaging each time it was told. People stopped inviting them to family and social events when they realized the kind of people they were. Dad's reputation in his small social circle in Phoenix was ruined. And Mom found herself having to explain uncomfortable situations at the pharmacy where she worked. Vanessa's social media presence, which had been built on the image of a glamorous lifestyle funded by family support, suddenly looked hollow and artificial when people understood the truth behind it. 6 months later, as I stood in the sleek office space I'd rented for Fields Construction Consulting, watching my team prepare for our largest client presentation to date, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge. Vanessa's social media, which had been built on a glamorous lifestyle funded by her family, suddenly looked fake when people learned the truth. 6 months later, as I stood in my sleek office for Fields Construction Consulting, watching my team get ready for our biggest client presentation yet, I felt a deep satisfaction that wasn't about revenge at all. I'd chosen myself, my self-respect, my boundaries, my future over the comfortable dysfunction of family loyalty. I chose myself, my self-respect, my personal boundaries, and my future over the comfortable chaos of family loyalty. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who don't value you, even when they share your DNA. The sting of their betrayal had faded, replaced by the quiet confidence that comes from building a life on your own terms. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to have the courage to leave people who don't appreciate you, even if they are your family. The pain of their betrayal had faded, replaced by the quiet confidence that comes from creating a life for yourself.